All right, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Thursday night live stream for Week 10 of the 2025 fantasy football season. I can say, objectively speaking, as someone who had to sit through the Jets taking on the Denver Broncos in London a couple weeks back, and I'm sure many of you were here throughout that Sunday morning live stream where we all experienced a very underwhelming game. We thought to ourselves, it can't get worse than that. And let me tell you, somehow, some way, we find a possibility in which we actually found a worse experience. Thursday Night Football has been horrid for 2 weeks in a row. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. 3 weeks in a row. As long as we continue to have Thursday games at this point, I just thought about not streaming. That's how upsetting that game was to watch. As a football enjoyer, just outside of just fantasy, just isolating football as a game, that was just hard to watch. Now, don't even get me started on fantasy. Is Bo Nix okay? Was he concussed in that game? Can someone throw the ball to Cortland Sutton? What do we need to do? Could we blow Nix? Exactly. Tibbs, brother, you got it on. That's exactly it, brother. That is, I couldn't have said it better. In my next video, Tibbs, I'm running that. That's the name I'm putting underneath him. I'm putting Blow Nix. Forget this Bo Nix BS. I can't, man. I can't. It's unbelievable. All right. Anyway, can we, you know what I want? You know in Men in Black, where they have that little boop, and then it just, you forget everything? I want that for what I just had to experience for the last 3 hours. That's what I would like. Please and thank you. If that can happen, that would be great. I would like to forget what I just witnessed and move on for the remainder of Week 10 and hope that we can at least find some semblance of fantasy success. Luckily for those of you who played Genty and then subsequently also played Troy Franklin, congratulations, you found yourself success. But for those of us who were stupid enough to play Brock Bowers, J.K. Dobbins, Cortland Sutton, Bo Nix, well, we all got washed down the river. And we're going to continue on and hope that we can kind of go ahead and correct our mistakes in this most recent game with the efforts of players as we proceed towards Sunday. Again, as we progress towards Sunday, there's going to be more and more information regarding injuries. I'm sure many of you are wondering whether or not someone like Bucky Irving is going to play. Again, even post-bye week, it's not a good sign that he hasn't practiced each of the last 2 days. It's very much so, man, I don't know. Not going to the IR and still being, out for this long just reminds me of Pearsall, to which both of those situations are so confusing. But nonetheless, we're going to be answering questions for the next hour. Hopefully, I'm going to try my best to not send you in the direction of someone like Brock Bowers who catches one ball and completely ruins our week. But hopefully we can answer these questions and get on the right path. Again, if you guys have a question, you can either type it in the live chat or you can, of course, send it in via super chat in order to claim priority. Again, as long as you include your scoring format and as much context as possible, how many teams in your league, who's on your roster, the more context you provide, the easier it'll be to answer said questions. Otherwise, of course, I can just answer questions within a vacuum and easily go ahead and move it forward. Outside of that, again, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings and, of course, want to take advantage of the Betr promo, again, using code Andrew today will get you guys all of that. Again, I've mentioned it multiple times. You got to use code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of 10, and additionally make that first time play within a real cash play, and you'll get my Sunday morning rankings for the remainder of the season. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go ahead and let's throw up on screen. Speaking of throwing up on screen, I almost did watching this game. Guys, it was. I'm done. I'm not mentioning this game anymore. I'm done. I'm past it. Let's move on. All right, here we go. Let's get on with some questions here. We have Kent who says questions in the chat, bro. Thank you, Kent. All right, probably foolish to think Harvey was going to continue his touchdown streak. Well, you know what? Yeah, you're not 20, hindsight 2020, brother. Says, talk me off the ledge, LOL. How foolish am I to think that JCM bounces back after 4 midweeks, banking on production/touchdown luck, plus fantasy god swinging him towards his median, question mark. Look, as of right now, I would say that you are, is it foolish? I don't think it's foolish. I think anything can happen within a fantasy game, just like we just witnessed, right? Anything could possibly happen, whether it's positive or a negative outcome. But in the case of JCM taking on the Detroit Lions, I don't love the matchup. I don't love the way that they've been running the ball. I don't love his opportunity share in terms of the quality of the opportunities he's being given. I don't love the fact that he doesn't get any receiving workload. Ultimately, based on where I currently have him ranked going into the given week, again, it's just like, it's already tough to trust him because he's burnt us for 4 straight weeks. I currently have him as my RB 34. Like, I have to rank him in that top 36 because he's a starting running back. But do I want to play him? No. As for your rest of your team, Kent says full PPR, pick 5 between Slayton, Monangai, Pierce, Hawkinson, Loveland, and Njoku and JCM. Okay, so looking at the available, DeAndre Swift did in fact log a full practice earlier today, which does lessen the overall value of Monangai, but I will mention, in the last 2 games, the New York Giants defense has allowed 4 different running backs to surpass 10 plus fantasy points, whether it be Tank Bigsby, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Brian Robinson Jr. So I think we're going to continue that streak this week with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai both surpassing 10 fantasy points. So I'm going to play Monangai there. I would pair him up alongside of Loveland in the absence of Cole Kmet in an advantageous matchup against, additionally, that New York Giants defense. Speaking of New York Giants, I'll play Slayton taking on Chicago's secondary that has been rough shot back there with all the injuries they've taken on this season. I'll take Alec Pierce taking on the Atlanta Falcons. And then between Hawkinson, Njoku, and JCM, genuinely, I think I just play Njoku there, especially with Harold Fannin dealing with a little bit of an injury in the last 2 games of Njoku leading to a touchdown, taking on the Jets defense that just lost their 2 best defenders. I would, potentially expect to see a possibility in which we could get Njoku in the end zone as well. So those are the 5: Njoku, Loveland, Pierce, Monangai, and Slayton. Half PPR, pick 1 wide receiver, 1 flex between Slayton, Monangai, Pierce, Parker, Washington, and JCM. Of those available options, I probably go with Monangai, and I think I kind of want to play Parker Washington, especially if, in fact, we do have a position in which Brian Thomas Jr. does miss. He's missed each of the last 2 days of practice, leading me to believe that he could, in fact, miss Sunday's game against Houston. Thanks, man. All right, Nick Abner sends in a question. Says in a PPR, Jawan Johnson or Loveland at tight end? Thanks. I have them both ranked within my top 16 tight end rankings, but as of right now, again, with Cole Kmet leaning towards him most likely going to miss, and how advantageous of a matchup the New York Giants have been for tight ends as of late, I would lean towards playing Colston Loveland in this situation. Whether it is in the inline, out wide, or in the slot position, they're moving him around the formation. They're trying to get him the ball as frequently as possible. And of course, this most recent week coming away with targets in the red zone, incredibly of value, which going forward, hopefully they're only going to continue to build upon. So I'd go with Loveland in this circumstance, even though I do identify Jawan Johnson to also have himself a good matchup and the possibility of a greater target share in the absence of Rashid Shaheed. Thank you. Eddie J, what's up, my man? Says Andrew, in a 12-team full PPR league, pick 1 between Travion Henderson, Woody Marks, Jordan Mason, Tank Bigsby. Okay, so Tank is not going to be of use, as earlier today, A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley were at full capacity of practice. So for those of you who were holding on to Tank Bigsby or Dylan Sampson in the last couple of weeks prior to, of course, the return of these players off of the bye, both can be effectively dropped unless you just want to keep the handcuff on roster for the purposes of insurance. So as of right now, I'm not really interested in Tank Bigsby. As of right now, additionally, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron Jones practiced today, so Jordan Mason doesn't have value as long as Aaron Jones is around. So it's between Travion Henderson and Woody Marks. I would lean towards probably playing Travion Henderson because Ramondre Stevenson is most likely going to miss, having missed each of the last 2 days of practice and not practicing at all last week. So it's between Henderson and Marks, and I'll probably go with Henderson there. The only reason I would ever play Marks is in the event in which Nick Chubb, who was limited today at practice, somehow misses this upcoming Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then it says pick between, pick 1 flex between Douglas, Loveland, Watson, or any of the previous names. I'd feel relatively comfortable just going Henderson and Loveland here. Again, in the event in which we do have Nick Chubb out, I wouldn't mind and Ramondre out, I would probably just go both running backs at that point, just off of pure volume and principle. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Romeo. What's up, my man? Romeo says in a 12-team half PPR league, start 8 is May, Achane, Jones, Hampton, Harvey, Marks, Rice, Egbuka, Olave, Godwin, Watson, and Kittle. I traded Josh Allen, Waddle, and Franklin for May, Egbuka, and Aaron Jones. Thoughts? I think you may have overpaid, but ultimately, okay, yes, I do prefer Josh Allen over Drake May, and I do prefer Egbuka over Waddle. And as long as Aaron Jones is a more valuable prospect to you going forward, I think this is okay. But just again, the deal is done. I would probably want to keep my Josh Allen shares, But in this case, I mean, the deal is done. Let's look towards the future. Let's see what the roster looks like as a whole. Drake May's obviously going to be solid, so I'm not too worried about that. In regards to wide receiver, obviously you're going to have Rice Abuka, which is a great combination alongside of Olave, Kittle at tight end. So pretty much your only question mark revolves around running back, because you know that you have Achane contributing weekly. And obviously you have Hampton eventually coming back, hopefully post-bye. So by the time we get to week 13, maybe week 12, 13 at the very latest, which would be definitely a huge boost for us. But otherwise, it's probably Woody Marks, which, I mean, I guess Aaron Jones could do the job. But again, he's dealing with a toe and shoulder injury, which kind of makes it a little bit of a tough situation. So I felt like I needed some running back depth with Hampton out. Any other moves that I should make? I mean, in terms of potential moves that you could theoretically make for running backs, I guess it just depends on a couple factors. If your win-loss record does not require you to have to like win out to make the playoffs, and we're looking in the direction of trying to like put together a roster that has the easiest strength of schedule ahead, especially for the fantasy playoffs, if you're already trying to prep for that, the Houston Texans technically have the easiest running back strength of schedule from weeks 15 through 17, followed by the Eagles, Cardinals, I mean, the Patriots, the Commanders, the Dolphins. So you've got a lot of those names already there. So I'm not too worried about your overall situation, considering, again, you do have the Achane, you do have Marks, and if Jones can suffice until Hampton comes back, I think you're in a relatively solid position. But really, your only biggest question is RB2, and adding depth to it, I guess, helps in terms of weekly decision-making based on matchups itself. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question that came in from Andrew Mitchell, who says, "Hey, Andrew, I need one running back and one wide receiver and one flex in a standard 6-point bonus per 100 yards rushing and receiving. Roster is Swift, Monangai, White, JCM, Hall, Diggs, and Tedderall, McMillan." Thanks, man. All right, so in this current circumstance, in a standard scoring format where you get 0 points per reception, which is what I'm assuming this is, considering that's the way that you've kind of phrased it, in the event in which you can only start one running back, one wide receiver, one flex, Swift has to play. I think as long as Bucky Irving is out, Rachaad White has to play. And then after that, it's a matter of who am I playing at wide receiver, to which it's Stephon Diggs. So Swift, Rachaad White, Diggs. And somehow, some way, if Bucky Irving comes out of the woodwork tomorrow, then you can play Swift, Hall, and Diggs. But otherwise, it's going to be Rachaad White for me. Thank you. On Vesh, what's up, my man? Says, giving up Vidal and Marks for Jalen Hurts in a trade. My running backs are Henry, Jacobs, Rico. Yeah, you're good to go. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem with this at all. I think it's a great trade. Again, Vidal is a fleeting commodity, will eventually disappear post Omarion Hampton's return, and Woody Marks for Jalen Hurts in a 1-for-1 capacity, I think is fantastic in terms of improving quarterback play for the remainder of the season for you. Thank you. Says, any other trades moves I can make with any other players? Okay, so this is what I'm going to suggest. So tomorrow I'm going to put out a video that is going to encompass the rest of season strength of schedule for all 4 positions, and then it will also subsequently include trade targets at all 4 positions, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and quarterback, so that we can go ahead and settle which players we're going after based on upcoming schedule and based on the fact that we can take advantage of said schedules for the months, for the months ahead, I guess, per se. So in the case of the upcoming matchups for players that you need, let's say, for example, you're in a bind. You're like, Andrew, I've got to win out. Well, okay, then I'll go ahead and I'll put the overall strength of schedule from weeks 10 through 14 so that we know which players that we want to have on roster who have all their players past the bye week so that we don't have to fall into the trap of having a bye week disaster. And then additionally, on top of that, have an advantageous schedule, such as, for example, the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. Again, they take on the Los Angeles Chargers this week, into Cincinnati, Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore. That's the second best strength of schedule throughout that period of time, weeks 10 through 14. Right? So Jaylen Warren would be someone that we would want to go after in that circumstance. Judkins, throughout that span of time, coming off of the bye, the 6th easiest strength of schedule, only a half a point behind the likes of the Pittsburgh Steelers in that capacity. But again, we'll go over that tomorrow. In regards to some trades that, just looking at your roster as a whole, your running backs are set. I don't think there's a necessity to have to make a move there. So when you have Jalen Hurts, Henry, Jacobs, Rico, and then your wide receivers consisting of Keenan Allen, Courtland Sutton, Jordan Addison, there could be an opportunity in which you do ship off a Rico Dowdle in order to go get some wide receiver help. You could do that. I think it would probably be in your best interest to, I guess if you're playing like a half PPR, playing Henry, Jacobs, and Rico every week would be pretty good. But in the event in which you have the opportunity to like move Rico and go get Ibuka and another piece on top of it, 2 wide receivers maybe in return to kind of bolster your depth at wide receiver, I think that would be a very wise decision, because at that point you'll have a little bit more kind of potential for upside across the board rather than everything being on the backs of singularly your 3 running back studs, which again, you certainly could play it out that way. But typically I would like to try to spread the love here and try to get some alternative options at wide receiver that are a little bit more stable than what these 3 are going to provide. Thank you. Johnny Kilroy says, do you think Hampton will be impactful coming off of his injury? Schedule seems to be easy. I mean, looking at the schedule for the fantasy playoffs, well, not even the fantasy playoffs, just talking about weeks, let's say 13 through 17, okay? The final 5 games of the season. We would hope that the first 2 games against Las Vegas and Philadelphia would be the warm-up, and then he would have Kansas City week 15, which I don't love, then Dallas week 16 and Houston week 17, which honestly I think are both relatively advantageous matchups. So I think if you were to utilize them as a warm-up for 3 weeks there, by the time you get to week 16, 17, if you're a team that has Hampton because you know you're going to get a first-round bye, I think that's certainly something that you could take advantage of with the Dallas matchup and Houston matchups in week 16/17. So yeah, I think he will be impactful, but it's just a matter of like, you know, can you afford to give him those warm-up weeks, or does he have to immediately play for you come week 13, you know? Don Ray Morales, what's up, my man? Says, I have Flacco. I've got Jalen Warren, Olave, Swift, Kenneth Walker, Kittle, Worthy, and JT. Okay. For the playoffs, should I trade away Jonathan Taylor for Higgins and Chase Brown, or away for Devontae Smith and AJ Brown? Also, is Giddens JT's true handcuff? I would assume that the rushing workload would go in the direction of Giddens, but I also would assume that both him and Amir Abdullah would split the overall opportunity share like a 2-headed monster. If you guys remember last season in this same exact offense, obviously with the same coordinator but different quarterback, as soon as Jonathan Taylor was missing time, it was a little bit of a split backfield. Right, it was Goodson, and I don't remember the other. I think was it Sermon? I think it was Goodson and Sermon that were splitting the overall opportunity share there. So I would assume the same thing occurs in this overall iteration of the offense, to where it would be Giddens, and then additionally also Amir Abdullah. They would both get love. So they'd probably split a 50-50 or 60-40 with, you know, determining on the hot hand of that given week. As for your question as a whole, though, look, I do identify that the upcoming schedule, especially for the fantasy playoffs, is not the greatest for the Indianapolis Colts backfield, as they take on Seattle week 15, which is the toughest matchup. Then they have San Francisco, which is not the greatest either. And then they have Jacksonville. But I mean, when we're talking about the talent of Jonathan Taylor, at this point in my mind, he is matchup proof, to which getting, you know, Higgins and Chase Brown. Let me look at your roster here. You have Flacco, Jalen Warren, Olave, Swift, Kenneth Walker. So the roster as it stands right now, with like JT, Jalen Warren, or Swift as your RB1 and then /2s, and you also have Kenneth Walker in the mix. If I was in your position, I would try to, I mean, if you could, theoretically speaking, if you could, I would try to move like Swift, Jalen Warren, or Kenneth Walker in order to accomplish a trade for a wide receiver. But if I'm not able to, I would just take these 2. I would take Devontae Smith and I would take AJ Brown, and I'd ride off into the sunset on their backs. Because I think it is a relatively fair trade in terms of what you're getting in exchange, because your wide receiver depth in terms of Worthy is just, I mean, that's it. That's all you have. You have Worthy. There's nobody, I mean, Olave, I guess. So Olave would start, but I'd honestly prefer to play Devontae Smith and AJ Brown ahead of him almost every week. And looking at the upcoming schedule ahead for Philadelphia, especially when we talk about like the fantasy playoff exchange of weeks 15 through 17, Las Vegas, Washington, Buffalo, like I'd be on the backs of both those guys, probably putting together some pretty big performances. So yeah, I don't mind the trade in which we're getting both of these. Relying on the likes of these players for Cincinnati, I don't really love too much. I'd rather just go after the Philly offense. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question that came in from Mo Money, who says, send BTJ, Travion Henderson, Slayton for Montgomery and Alec Pierce, I'm assuming. Team is below. I mean, looking at the, let's see, do I send BTJ, Slayton? And, okay, well, this is a different question, right? This is, do I send BTJ plus Slayton for Montgomery instead? Okay, got it. And then, I mean, looking at your team right now, you have Judkins. Oh, yeah. Okay. We've talked about trades for this team for the last couple days. In this iteration of the offense, I'd be willing to make that move. That's fine by me. I think you can survive without it. I think just getting a little bit of depth at running back that you can start weekly right now until you can figure out whether or not Alvin Kamara and Travion Henderson could be of service going forward is probably vital. To which in your situation, as much as I would like to keep BTJ, I don't trust his injury. I don't trust the utilization we've seen. And quite frankly, when I look at the upcoming schedule ahead, I mean, technically speaking, they have the second toughest wide receiver schedule for the remainder of the season, on top of the fact that they have to take on Indianapolis twice in the next 7 games. Twice in the next 8 games, where you have Sauce Gardner coverage. I have no interest in BTJ going forward. I'd ship him off. Just give me Montgomery. Thank you. I'd rather keep Travion Henderson, though. I'd rather just take this trade more money. Thank you. Marion Garcia says, thoughts on my team. Where can I improve? It's in the chat. Okay. So in a full PPR on 5 and 4, we've got Lamar, Bijan, Genty, Waddle, Devontae Smith. We have Trey McBride, Sutton, Judkins, J-Mo, Darnell Mooney, Hunter, and handcuffs. Okay. So looking at the team as a whole, Bijan Robinson, Genty, fantastic. Lamar, fantastic. Waddle, Devontae Smith, McBride, fantastic. Judkins, even better. My goodness. He'll play as your flex rest of the way. Sutton can put him on the bench. J-Mo's in a fantastic position. If you're playing in a double flex format, obviously we try to improve upon Sutton, but ultimately looking at what you have in terms of your bench depth, I wouldn't be able to trade anything. And honestly, I wouldn't even ask you to trade anything. I would like to keep the roster as is, unless you get into a position in which somebody would like to trade for one of your players and they're willing to kind of break the bank in order to get them on their roster. That's the only time in which I would try to make a move. But ultimately, I think the roster as it stands here is really strong because Lamar's got technically the easiest strength of schedule ahead. And then you have Bijan, Genty, and Judkins, who I'm very much so high on. And then Waddle, Devontae Smith, again, fire him up every week. And McBride, who for a remainder of the season, as long as Jacoby's there, should probably finish as the rest of season tight end 1. So again, I don't have any generalized moves in which you need to make. I think you're solid just keeping it as is. Thomas sends in a question, says start 2, Rachaad White, Devontae Smith, Kamani Vidal, or Ray Davis if Cook is out. I would expect Cook to play, but in the event in which Cook was out, yes, I would play Ray Davis alongside of Rachaad White. But in the event in which he is not, which I'm anticipating Cook to play, at that point I would play Devontae Smith and Rachaad White. Thank you. Emily Doyle says, hi Andrew, Slayton, JCM, or Jawan Johnson in the flex in a full PPR scoring format. Let me see where I had them ranked earlier today in my Patreon rankings in a full PPR real quick. Let me see. If we go Slayton, and we're comparing him to Jawan Johnson. As of the 2 right now, I currently do have Jawan Johnson slightly ahead of the group of 3 available. It would go Johnson first, Slayton 2, and then JCM 3. Thank you, Emily. Ross Wong says, Chase Brown, Lad McConkey, Pearsall for Saquon, Rome. Thoughts? Yeah, I would prefer to... rest of season, I don't know what the value of Pearsall is. Again, as of right now with the injury, who knows if he's even the same after he returns from the injury, right? So if we're just looking at it in terms of contributable factors going forward, do I want Saquon and Rome for the rest of the way here? Rome Odunze's usage as of late has scared the crap out of me. I do feel like he will get eventually back on track, to which... yeah, I'm okay going for the side of the Rome Odunze Saquon experiment here. Thank you. Precision Building says, hey, bud, in a half PPR, Warren or Loveland? As for this week, I know that Warren's matchup is a complete disaster, but I would still have to lean towards him in this circumstance. If you wanted to take the risk and go with Loveland, that's fine by me. Says, I need 2 receivers in 1 flex. We have Abuka, Tez Johnson, Demario Douglas, Monungai, Henderson, and Charbonnet. 2 receivers in this circumstance would be Tez and Abuka. And then your flex out of this group would probably end up being Monungai of the available. Thank you. And then TanFam sends out a question, says, do I trade the Texans defense for Fannin? My tight ends are Schultz and Barner. No, I would keep it as is. I don't think you need to trade for Fannin. Looking at the rest of season strength of schedule at tight end in specific, and the fact that they did not trade away the likes of David Njoku at the trade deadline, I think definitely does kind of prevent the breakout that should have occurred for Fannin this season. But in terms of rest of season strength of schedule on top of it, again, it's not the prettiest sight to see for Cleveland, as they have Technically the 5th most difficult going forward. And yeah, as of right now, I know that they highly utilize tight ends, but I don't think there's a necessity to have to make this move. I'm okay just swapping between Schultz and Barner based on matchups going forward. Chase McGraw sends in a question, says, if Stevenson is out, would you start Henderson over DJ Moore? I would. Thank you. Bisco sends in a question, says, trade McBride for London and Kittle or Goddard. Wide receivers are CeeDee Lamb, Waddle, DK, Tedderroll, McMillan, Pearsall. Okay, yeah, I mean, look, immediately the answer is yes. And I will take Kittle in London. Without a doubt in my mind, please and thank you, firm handshakes, get out of there. I know McBride is absolutely balling out, but what London and Kittle would provide to your roster for rest of season purposes, I wouldn't hesitate. I would make this deal. I understand that Brissett's going to make McBride unstoppable, but in terms of pure value for one-for-one exchange, McBride and London technically are going to contribute the same volume of points. And I think Kittle, you're pretty much buying him at his all-time floor. Once Purdy comes back, he and him will be connecting for many touchdowns. I would not worry about it, Bisco. Thank you. Ferd M sends it a question. Ferd, thank you. Says, should I trade Christian McCaffrey and Dallas Goedert for JSN and Saquon Barkley? Yes, immediately. No questions asked. Get a trade done right now. Go do it. Leave the stream. Get it done. I have Gibbs. My wide receivers are Zay Flowers, Sutton. Unfortunately today, yep. Pickens and DK Metcalf. My tight end is Bowers. Unfortunately today, yeah, listen, it's fine. I would make this trade. Give me JSN and Saquon rest of season. It's an automatic trade with no hesitation in my mind. Thank you. John sends in a question. Says, how high are you? And how high would you rate Rico Dowdle in a full PPR comparative to wide receiver? So in terms of flex rankings in comparison to where I have the wide receiver position, I have Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle is ahead of almost... Let's just put it this way. Rico Dowdle this week in my full PPR flex ranking is my number 9 overall player against New Orleans, which is not really much of a surprise considering New Orleans can't stop the run. And additionally, on top of it, Rico Dowdle has been unstoppable when given ample opportunity share. So in terms of this week, the only wide receivers I would genuinely play over him this week are JSN, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Puka Nacua. There's no other wide receiver I would play ahead of Rico Dowdle this week. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell sends out a question, says, I have a dilemma and a half PPR with Ricky Pearsall out and Rashee Rice on my bye. I need 2 wide receivers between DK as my wide receiver 1. RBs are Gibbs, Kyron, Bucky. Don't expect for Bucky to play. Quinshon Judkins and Monangai. Okay, cool. And then quarterback is Caleb or Daniel Jones. And then we have Tyler Warren and OG drop who? Nab Pierce. Wow. Okay, so can you wait until Bucky? Okay, so this is my legitimate suggestion. Can you wait until Bucky gets designated out, then put him on IR, and then have a free open spot? If that is not a possibility, then you drop Ricky Pearsall. Get him off the team. Because he is not helping, and genuinely, I think Alec Pierce could be more valuable for rest of season purposes. And I'm not willing to drop Caleb or Jones because Daniel Jones goes on an upcoming bye week here. And I'm not willing to drop Tyler Warren or OG because Tyler Warren goes on an upcoming bye week here, and both are incredibly valuable for rest of the season. And additionally, because of the recent injury to Swift and seeing what kind of damage Monangai can provide, he's not droppable either. So your most droppable piece in this circumstance is Ricky Pearsall if Bucky Irving going to the IR, and as in like being designated out this week and being placed in your IR position is not an availability to where you could open up a roster spot. Ricky Pearsall is on the chopping block there. Thank you. Nathan Gutierrez sends in a question. Thank you, Nathan. Says, hey, Andrew, I'm 4-5. Running backs are Henry, Hunt, Stevenson, Hubbard. My wide receivers are Rashee Rice, Drake, Dortch, Myers, Godwin. Tight end is Gadsden, TJ. Quarterbacks are Mahomes and Fields. Yeah, we've talked about this roster for the last couple of days here, so let's see what we have here. Says, I dropped Kupp for Dortch to kick return points and picked up Godwin. Is he coming back? The expectation is that he's not coming back this week, and considering he's been out for so long, I wouldn't expect him to be very effective even once he does return, because by the time he does, we don't know what kind of a health status he'll be at, considering it's a fibula ankle injury. Again, it's going to be a disaster. His career might be over, genuinely. We'll have to wait and see, and hopefully that's not the case, knock on wood. But in regards to your overall situation, in a league in which you're dealing with return yardage, let's see here. Let's see who is number 1 in the league in terms of total return yards. Chimere DK is number 1 in the league in terms of total return yards. Luke McCaffrey would be number 2 in terms of kickoff return yards. But again, obviously, Luke McCaffrey is out with injury most likely this week. Kevontae Turpin, obviously another major contributor within that capacity. Malik Washington, another big contributor, which I would also say is a great option. Yeah, Greg Dortch is in that mix. He sits in a relatively solid spot, but I would assume the rest of the guys that I probably already mentioned have already been picked up in your league. to which I do believe, yes, you are in a good spot there with the potential of Greg Dortch this week in terms of return yardage. Thank you. All right, continuing on, Nathan. We had Alan, who says, Andrew, question in the comments. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it, my man. His opinion on Judkins. I think Judkins is going to be fantastic rest of season. If we look at the upcoming schedule ahead, they take on they take on the New York Jets this week, okay? That's beautiful. Then they take on Baltimore, who earlier this season, in the game in which, again, that was his first game of the season, he had himself a great overall performance, and he can very much so well, potentially repeat that, if not play even better. Then they get the Las Vegas Raiders, San Francisco, then Tennessee, Chicago, Buffalo. I mean, at that point, I think even with these upcoming matchups, a lot of which of them are games in which they can stay in the mix, especially New York, Las Vegas, Tennessee, Chicago. So, yes, there may be games against like Baltimore and Buffalo where they're just outmatched across the board, but ultimately those are two teams that have been awful thus far this season in terms of stopping the run, whether it's even earlier on this year or even as of late. I mean, I'm talking about Buffalo in the last 4 games are giving up 19.65 fantasy points per game to running backs. Baltimore, 12.9. So again, there's still a and that's just rushing statistics alone, not even receiving upside that he could possibly claim. So I'm very much so high on Judkins in terms of his rest of season value. Says I have Hampton. Okay, so opinion on Judkins, Hampton, Nico for. Oh my God, brother, you're not even. You're asking me a trade question. I'm just talking about Judkins. Okay, sorry about that, my man. Okay, Alan, let's see what you have here, brother. Judkins, Hampton, Nico for Cook, Ladd, Devontae Smith, and Harvey. Okay, so. Okay, by the way, is this Devontae Smith or Devontae Adams? Because I don't know which Devontae you're referring to. I would assume that's Devontae Smith. But then again, it's spelled differently. That's like a Devontae as in like you spelled Devontae Adams. So curious about that. Also start two between Tez, Parker, Washington, Kamani, Vidal, and Marks. Between these options, I'll probably go Parker, Washington, and Woody Marks as of those available options. Now, in regards to your trade, Judkins, Hampton, and Nico for Cook, Ladd, Devontae, and Harvey. The only reason I would ever make a trade in which I'm giving away Hampton is if I can't afford for him to just wait for him to return. If I can't make the justification in terms of my roster because I can't afford to keep him, then technically this roster may help you in the long run. But losing 2 running backs here and technically it's not even 2, it's just 1 running back. I think Cook is more valuable than Judkins. I think Ladd is honestly going to be more valuable than Nico rest of season. I think Devontae Smith and Harvey are a good price to pay for Hampton. Yeah, I'm okay taking the Cook side here if Hampton being absent until week 12, 13, maybe even beyond that is something that you can't afford to keep, Alan. Sorry about somehow, some way, completely diverting your question to begin with there. My bad. Justin sends in a question. Says, in a 12-man full PPR league, I need a quarterback this week since Mahomes is on a bye. Do you trust J.J. McCarthy in week 10? Should I go with Mac Jones? I would prefer Mac Jones under the assumption that, again, Brock Purdy misses. Otherwise, I currently have J.J. McCarthy ranked as my number 18 overall quarterback. So he's just outside of the top 16 conversation, to which I would be very comfortable playing J.J. McCarthy there in the event in which Brock Purdy comes back and you don't have him to play instead of Mac Jones there. Thank you. Johnny Kilroy says, should I trade the Colts defense for Seattle's defense? A Colts fan wants them, but they'd be better now that with Sauce. I mean, here's the reality. Technically, yes, they should be a lot better now with Sauce Gardner locking down half of the field. So if you want to keep them, you can. I think it's just a pure matter of like, what does their schedule look like going forward? And how is their defense going to kind of align with the upcoming matchups? Okay, looking at weeks 12 and beyond, they get Kansas City. So regardless of who's playing corner there, they're going to get scored on. They get Houston, which is, they'll take care of Houston. Then they get Jacksonville. They'll take care of Jacksonville. Then they get Seattle, which is another tough team. San Francisco, and then Jacksonville again. So if I just look at the fantasy playoff schedule, Seattle, San Francisco, Jacksonville, 2 of those 3 games, I'd be a little bit worried about their secondary and their defense specifically. In regards to, Seattle's potential in the fantasy playoffs, Indianapolis, the LA Rams, and then Carolina. So they're pretty much in the same boat of where like the first 2 matchups are going to be tough, and only by the time you get to week 17, the fantasy football championship, will you be in luck to find a great matchup there. So honestly, if you want to make the trade, go for it. If you don't, again, I would see them to be similarly valued. The thing that I will say, though, is what Seattle does provide, and the reason why they're so good at fantasy is because Not only do they not allow a lot of points, but they're one of the best run-stop defenses in the league. And when you're forcing opposing offenses to have to throw, for fantasy purposes, that means more sacks, that means more passing attempts, that means technically more interceptions potentially available. So those are the points that you want to get: sacks and, of course, interceptions, which Seattle is always at. Thank you. Bisco says, sell high on Judkins after this week for Achane, Warren. Yeah, I mean, my running backs are Achane and Warren. If you can sell high on Judkins after this week, sure you can. I think there's a lot of juice left to squeeze out of Judkins, but if you would like to, you can, depending on what you can get in exchange. Alan says, thanks, man. So make trade if worried about Hampton. Make trade if you cannot afford to keep Hampton on roster. Let's say, for example, you're like, Andrew, I'm not going to make the playoffs if I have Hampton here, and I need players like Cook, Devontae Adams or Smith. I don't remember. I think it was Devontae Smith. Where's the question, Alan? Let's see here. Yeah, in the event in which, Smith, thank you. So in the event in which you cannot afford to keep Hampton because you're like, Andrew, I'm not going to make the playoffs because I don't have enough depth, then technically, yes, I'd make the trade. Because I think the value which you're getting here is equal, if not better. Thank you. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and we continue on. Let's jump into the live chat, see what you guys have to say. Seattle versus Indy for me. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't mind that at all. Judkins has second best fantasy rest of season schedule. New England has number one. I think it depends on what you look at, but yes, based on just like the technical weeks 10 through 17, yes, New England has number one and it's not close. Matt Glore, what's up? Says full PPR Musgrave or Jawan Johnson. I would prefer to play Jawan Johnson. I'd give Musgrave a week, especially considering I don't like the matchup against Philly. Hey, Darnold sends in a question. Says looking for to move Bucky. Suggest a cost-efficient, low leverage, high upside running back to trade him away for, excluding Marks or Henderson. Okay, a cost-efficient. If you're gonna move away Bucky Irving, I genuinely better get back a player of the caliber of, what I would want, best case scenario, is Judkins, Jalen Warren. In the event in which that is not a possibility, I would take DeAndre Swift or Travis Etienne. In the event in which that is still not possible, I don't make the trade in which I'm moving Bucky Irving. But if they would to give me Kenneth Walker plus another player, I'd be interested. Those are some options. Now, if you can get more for him than that, just what I just told you, if someone's going to give you Kyron or Rico or Henry or Barkley or any of those players, then geez, brother, take that. But I would say Judkins, Warren, Swift, ETN, worst case scenario, Walker, maybe 2-for-1s, 2-for-2s, etc. Thank you. Dak will smoke Vegas. Knicks is not very good in my opinion. I'm a huge Broncos fan. Dak will smoke Vegas. When does Dak play Vegas? Is that next week? Let's see here. Dallas versus Vegas next week. Yeah. Dak's going to be fine. I understand this most recent week was relatively underwhelming, but he'll be fine. He'll be good to bounce back. John says, what do we do with Bucky? Who can we even get for him? I think, look, here's the reality of the situation in regards to trades, guys. And this is what's always been difficult about suggesting players to go and trade for. In the event in which you play in a league where you have teams in your league that are very much so trade friendly, then it's very easy to go make trades because you know what they kind of want and what they value. But in leagues in which you have players that are just absolutely stuck to their players, it's impossible for me to tell you to go play, go make a trade for this player if people are stuck. But what's very difficult is like, you might go to a team and be like, hey, I want your Judkins. And the guy's like, I don't need Bucky Irving. I need a win right now. And I can't afford to get Bucky. So that kind of puts you in a situation where you can only go for teams that have a winning record in your league. And if you're going to give Bucky Irving to a team that has a winning record that will get him for the fantasy playoffs, and their fantasy playoff schedule for Bucky Irving looks like the following, where they take on Atlanta, Carolina, Miami, which is the 7th easiest strength of schedule, allowing 15.87 fantasy points per game via rushing statistics isolated throughout that span of time. Like, you're pretty much giving someone the chip in this circumstance, to which, again, you can if it gives you the opportunity to get to the fantasy playoffs. But I would say Chase Brown's another option. Javonte Williams another option because they're on bye. In the event in which you're like, all right, well, I don't need Bucky right now, but somebody wants them and those guys are on their bye week and they're thinking Bucky might play, you can probably try to steal it there. Mariota, Penix, or Rodgers. Out of those three available, I have Penix ranked the highest. Charlene, what's up? Says, hi, Andrew. One thing I noticed is Pete Carroll wants the old Seattle team. Carroll got Geno and Lockett. Yeah, he not only got Geno and Lockett, he also went and signed what is his name? I think is it Abrams? Jonathan Abrams? Let me see here. Yeah. Jonathan Abram. I mean, he's just trying to I don't know. It's weird. Las Vegas is in trouble. Spencer, what's up? Says PPR start Bam Knight? No, thank you. Or drop him for Devin Singletary and start him. I genuinely would rather start Devin Singletary because I do not like Bam Knight's matchup against Seattle. Or pick up Terrell Jennings. No. That's actually your answer. Terrell Jennings is the answer. Sean Tucker, no. Lions defense or Panthers defense? Let me see where I have them ranked as of today. As of today, I have the Lions as my number 3, and my number 4 defense is Carolina going into this week. So I would just stick with Lions as for today. And yes, Terrell Jennings would be your pickup and play. I do not anticipate for Ramondre Stevenson to play this week. Roster Ray Davis or Ty Johnson in case Cook misses. In the case in which James Cook was to miss, I would rather have Ray Davis on my roster. As last season they demonstrated against the New York Jets, in the absence of James Cook, Ray Davis was the go-to guy. Ibrahim, what's up? Says, I traded Swift for Sutton last week. Was I dumb? I mean, you were kind of in the panic frenzy, right? Because you didn't like his upcoming schedule, the fantasy playoffs. So, again, I mean, we just have to figure it out from here on forth. RXP says, I traded Javonte Williams and Kelsey for CeeDee Lamb. Did I cook? Javonte was my best RB, though. I have Chase Brown, Judkins, and Breece Hall. I mean, ultimately, it just depends who your tight end is, man. Because, like, technically, yes, I would rather have CeeDee Lamb over Javonte rest of the season in a full PPR, but losing Kelsey is kind of going to be rough here. Can I drop Bo Nix to regain my sanity? Absolutely. I have no problem with you regaining your sanity, brother. Hey, Andrew, trade question here. 10-team half PPR flex. One, I got 2 offers. Give JJ and Dart for London and Sutton/Dobbins plus Baker, or give Lamar /Tet plus Tet/Lad for JSN and Goff. Hold up. Let me just look at these questions as a whole real quick. I'm going to be honest, I don't like any of these trades. I'm intrigued with this Lamar and Tedero McMillan for JSN and Goff, because you would keep Dart and you would get JSN in this circumstance. I'm intrigued by that. As for the prior trade, not as interested. But I understand that you have Dart. We've talked about this, Joseph. You have Dart and Lamar, and I've told you should probably look to try to move Dart off roster. But the issue is here, I don't need a quarterback in return. Like, Lamar is going to be my guy, and he's going to take me to the chip. So in these trades, in this circumstance, I'd love to get London back, but I don't want Sutton, Dobbins, or Baker. I want another piece here that is specifically a running back or wide receiver that is of greater value than what Dobbins and Sutton provide. So in the event in which you can send JJ and Dart for London and a better value player, then sure. Otherwise, I think this is the more intriguing deal here. Even though you are losing Lamar and Tet, I mean, ultimately, I'm very comfortable starting Jackson Dart with Justin Jefferson, JSN, Lad McConkey as my primary wide receiver trio with my quarterback there. Thank you. Hey, since Cole Kmet practiced today, do you think Loveland will get enough or just start Musgrave? Well, here's the thing. Concussion protocol has to be passed. Until we get the designation in which he passes the concussion protocol, I would wait to see what's going to go down. In the event in which he does pass the concussion protocol within less than a week, which again is going to be incredibly unlikely. But in the event in which he does, do I rather play Musgrave? No, I'd still play Loveland there. Albert, what's up, man? This is Herbert, Rice, Chase, McCaffrey, Marks, Goddard. Okay, let's see what else we have. Theo Johnson is my starters. I have Pearsall, Algier, Brian Robinson, and Purdy on my bench. Should I ride with this or trade for RB2 and a flex? I mean, the question is, what are you going to move in order to get it? I mean, like, obviously, I don't need to have Goddard and Theo Johnson on my team rest of the season. Like, obviously, Theo Johnson's functioning as your flex right now, which is not great. If you were going to theoretically have to make a move for a player, it would require that you move one of your 3 studs in the form of Rice, Chase, and Christian McCaffrey, to which I think I'm just going to wait until, like, I think I would just wait. Unless you're going to get back two really solid players. Like, unless you're going to send Christian McCaffrey and someone's going to give you, like, I don't know, just throwing out random names. And someone's going to give you back. I don't even know if I want to give random names. I think I have to be a little bit more intentional about this. If you give away Christian McCaffrey and someone's willing to give you like Devon Achane and then a lesser wide receiver too, Olave. If someone wants to give you something like that, then I'm okay making that kind of a move, to which at least I kind of bolster my flex so I don't have to play Theo Johnson weekly in a PPR. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and answer a couple more questions here, then we're going to go ahead and head out again. I'll be back tomorrow with, like I mentioned earlier today on this live stream, we're going to have rest of season strength of schedule at all 4 primary positions tomorrow for weeks 10 through 17 so that we know what to do in terms of potential trade opportunities and who to go after in your leagues. I do appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel. We'll answer a couple more of these super chats, and then we're going to close it out here. All right, we go to Spencer James, who says, PPR, okay, we already took care of this one. Thank you again, Spencer. Appreciate that, my man. Nathan Gutierrez had a follow-up, says, who do I start at quarterback? I have Fields. Mahomes is on a bye. Who should I pick up off the waivers? Mariota, Rodgers, Tua, Penix, or Brissett? I would legitimately play Brissett this week. It's either Brissett or Fields. I have Brissett 2 spots ahead of Fields as of right now. Fields is my number 17 quarterback going into the week. Or stick with Fields versus Cleveland. You can stick with him. That's fine by me. Again, if Garrett Wilson's playing, I would assume that Fields will be decent. At least decent as in middle of the pack quarterback, which is why I have him at number 17. Alex Ruiz sends in a question. Alex, thank you. It says PPR 3 wide receiver league. Who would you trade Diggs, DK, Kyron for? Sorry, would you trade Diggs, DK, and Kyron for Nakua? My starting running backs are Bucky/White and Rico. Okay. Starting wide receivers are Chase, Puka, Tedero, McMillan, and Keenan Allen. Okay, so this would be post-trade. You would have Nakua with... Okay, so looking at the roster as a whole, if it's a full PPR 3 wide receiver league, am I making this trade? No, I'm not. I'd keep what you have. I think I would rather play Chase, DK, and Diggs every week and have the stability of Kyron Williams here alongside of Rico. And then I'm going to flex Bucky. I think going for Nakua here is just nonsensical because these guys are just not going to get it done. It would be luck involved regarding Tedero, McMillan, and Keenan going forward. So I would keep what you have there, brother. I'd rather have Diggs, DK, and Kyron. Eric M says PPR Johnson or Pitts. I would rather have Kyle Pitts this week. It's a fantastic matchup. Whatever his overall numbers are, via better this weekend, I'm going more than. Tez Johnson or Christian Watson rest of season. I would rather have Christian Watson rest of season. National Champ Rush says, who do I start if Purdy can't go? Mariota or Mac Jones or Aaron Rodgers? I'd go with Mac Jones there. Thank you. Jorge Perez with the final question of the day says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, I need a wide receiver dropping Isaiah Davis. Options are Zacchaeus, Kirk, Douglas, Coleman, Golden, Lane, Shepard, Hollins, Cooks, Michael Wilson, Tillman, and Diami Brown. Of your available options, I would probably lean towards Christian Kirk or Romeo. Why am I thinking Romeo Dobbs? Demario Douglas. It's a full PPR, to which, yeah, I'll take Christian Kirk in the revenge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, former team. I'll take Christian Kirk there out of those available options. Thank you. Jordan Brookins says, trade Addison and ETN for CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, immediately. 100%. I would rather have CeeDee Lamb rest of the way. Absolutely. Especially considering you have Achane and Genty for rest of the season. Both of them actually, the only issue is that Achane is not past this bye week, but ultimately, like, if you can survive that and that's not a big deal, then yes, CeeDee Lamb is the better value point here for rest of season purposes. All right, guys. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Again, I understand that this Thursday night game was absolutely putrid. Hopefully we're not going to see too many of those as we go forward. But then again, next week we have the New England Patriots taking on the Jets. And I have a sneaking suspicion the Jets will play a lot better than we anticipate. Nonetheless, hope you guys are having a great Thursday. And hopefully we can continue that momentum going into this upcoming weekend. Again, this upcoming Sunday morning, I'll be live streaming here on the channel starting at 6 a.m. PST. We'll have a 4-hour live stream considering there's a game in Berlin, Germany. The Colts taking on the Falcons. Again, like I mentioned before, for those of you guys who want my Sunday morning rankings, you can find them via Betr by signing up using code Andrew, making that first time deposit minimum of 10, and then making a first time play within a real cash play. Of course, once you accomplish all 3 of those steps and you're eligible via the overall map here, you'll get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours for the remainder of the season every single Sunday morning, which includes every position, including flex, kicker, defense, half PPR, and full PPR. Otherwise, you can go ahead and check out the Patreon and support there. I'll be answering questions there later tonight. If you guys have any questions, swing on by, shoot over a question by signing up today. All right, guys, that's it for me. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys tomorrow as we're talking all things fantasy. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.